Welcome everybody to Conscious Voices Rising. My name is Deepika Delmenico and I'm the founder of Conscious Woman Rising and host of Conscious Voices Rising. Today I am so honored and thrilled to be in conversation with an extraordinary woman, Ash Johns. Let me tell you a little about Ash. Ash is an expert in the art of ancestral healing. She connects to ancient philosophies and beings of the past to create a brighter future for generations to come. Ash is a spiritual life coach, conscious business strategist, ancestral healer, speaker, and creator of Spiritual BSchool, which is a community-focused program designed to help soul seekers and visionary entrepreneurs do business better and in alignment with their soul's purpose. A bridge between humans and spirit, Ash supports those on the journey of discovering and living their unique path to freedom, while healing what she believes is our greatest recurring trauma as humans surviving. Ash's work marries an extensive spiritual practice with business savvy that guides entrepreneurs to realize their full potential, bringing conscious businesses into creation. So today it's such a delight. We're going to be in conversation about evolving spiritual practice, your spiritual practice from you to all. So welcome, Ash. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, to be in your company. We're literally two ends of the world together at one time. And thank you, technology and the spirits of technology, for allowing us to do this. Thanks for having me and welcome everyone.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's really extraordinary, isn't it? Like, it just shows how sacred technology can be used and understood and related to. And that's interesting because in the theme of the summit this year of Conscious Voices Rising, that is a reoccurring theme with, several of the panel discussions around the sacred aspect of technology. And I think, in 2020, we're more aware than ever with our physical isolation, how this is a tool that allows us to meet, like right now.
Yeah, I would say so. I was joking the other day saying, I'm so grateful for all this new technology. It's also making me use my psychic abilities a little bit more, my telekinesis, to be like, oh, Zoom isn't working. Like, I just want you to know I'm on the way. Yeah.
Well, it makes us, I think, get a little bit more comfortable with the unpredictable, because it's not a given that it's going to work every time. The speaker goes, or the camera doesn't work, or whatever. It's just like, yeah, you're right. We can develop our faculties of clairaudience, clairvoyance, telekinesis, whatever we need in the moment.
All of that.
All of it. So, Ash, there are so many things I'm wishing for you to share and ask you about. What does it mean? What does it mean to evolve your spiritual practice from the singular self to all?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm looking over time as far as I can, and all the different healers and teachers and elders and philosophers, if you will, who have taught us that we are the universe, or the universe is within us. And we all understand, for the most part, spiritualists or spiritual seekers and mystics and sages, of going within and uncovering what's within, and this I am, who am I in the world, and the relationship of me to everything else, which is nice, which is really helpful. And then sometimes we might say, okay, I think I know who I am, and I also want to honor, the spirits of the forest, or the spirits of the elements, within the context, again, of I. And what I started seeing is this individualized approach to spirituality isn't actually allowing us to truly and deeply and consistently connect, trust, allow, and flow, and like be in deeper relationship with each other. And I started seeing it because, there's lots of conversations around the world, but especially here in the States, around consciousness and inclusivity and social justice, especially within our liberal communities, and also within our new age or spiritual communities, of like, what are these deeper underlayers of uncomfortability or injustice or disconnection or pain or hurt or disregard that continues to perpetuate in all of these different scenarios where we know there's unity consciousness, we know there's love, we know there's belonging, there's singing the song, there's feeling the goosebumps on the body when you really connect, and yet we're still not getting there. And so it led me to really sit in these uncomfortable moments with other people and be like, what's really going on? It's because we're still looking at things through me. I feel spirit, I know who I am, I know how I mean well. So I'm not thinking of maybe the people before me or the people around me. It's, again, going through the filter of I instead of we. If it is in you or it's been in the world, then it's probably in me. If it's in me, it's probably in you. So how do we get into the deeper reoccurring stories or pains that lay dormant underneath the surface? That's kind of how I started getting into this and asking some deeper questions.
Yeah, so it's a real that's a different outlook and a different approach, or there's variations in it, to how we self-identify. So instead of beginning our quest to identify with self as a singular I, as you've described so eloquently, where instead of starting in and taking it out, it's starting out.
Yes, and coming in.
And learning to identify with who we are from the whole collective.
Yeah, I talk about this phenomenon in my book that I'm writing, that I've coined the accordion technique. And I've seen it not only in my own healing journey, but also in my client work. And that is this expanding and looking at everything and all the pieces, and then coming in and understanding it within the context of me, and then what's in me, and looking at it externally. And so you're constantly like expanding and contracting and being like, oh, otherwise we sometimes get stuck in either the one dimension of if I heal myself, then I heal everything outside of me, which is, going to take us a whole bunch more ages to do considering what's happening in the state of the world. Or we're constantly looking what's out in the world and not really tracking it back to me and what's my responsibility to contribute to the change. So this accordion technique movement, I constantly hold that in myself and with my clients so that we can see what's all going on. How do I care and hold the all without blowing my nervous system or being overwhelmed with just grief and anxiety, or floating off into the ethers full of love and connectivity, but not really being able to apply it in my interactions to make an impact in the world?
Yeah. So it's a little bit less, because it can become a bit self-indulgent, I suppose.
Yeah.
And this is a way for it to not only get lost in self-indulgence, but to be anchored.
Yes.
Collectively, so that we don't get bogged down in wallowing in what we find inside ourselves, and at the same time don't float off.
Yeah,
surf too much out here.
Totally. It's like this dance of the balance. And we know the importance of balance in a spiritual practice and discovery, right? And another piece that really started bringing this, moving your spiritual practice from just I into we, is again through this lens of injustice and hurt and pain and disconnection, whether that's through historically what's happened to women identifying people with patriarchy and like male dominated systems, whether that's through race relations or indigenous justice reform and things like that. And it made me be like, well, if we all are saying that we want things to be better and different, yet in our moment to moment pieces of life, like we're feeling deeper pain and like shame or guilt, there's got to be some more going on. Healing myself and taking my own actions or educating myself around these things, yet I find these moments of perpetuating it or not quite being able to root into the understandings of another person or another group of people. There's something else going on. And I actually was in Bali in Australia, and then coming back into the States when this was really starting to matriculate, if you will, or come together. And what I was seeing is, hey, this philosophy of like, I heal myself and then I heal my ancestors or what happened in the past 7 generations forwards and back isn't accurate. It absolutely isn't, because intellectually we've done the work. We've sat in the circles, we've cried the tears, we've had these conversations, and we're still seeing these recurring patterns building in systems of our humanity. What is this? And as I sat down and started speaking to spirit and like looking up books and reading things, like someone else had to have found this. And I did find some people who were on this same trajectory of like, these are ghosts, these are ancestral wounds. We can do all the mindfulness we want and workshops and retreats. And don't get me wrong, I love them. And yet getting into ancestors, not just in our bodies, but literally around us. The dead are not dead. Consciousness continues. They're affecting how we're processing and how we're seeing the world and how we're interacting with the world. And that's what really blew me even further than just my spirit or the spirits of the gods or the deities or the spirits of the land and the elementals or the nature spirits, into the spirits of ancestors that are part of this as well. What happens when my ancestors and your ancestors sit on some land with the elemental spirits? Now we have a bigger conversation going on. Now we can really move some planes and some things that can come into a balance, again, of courage and compassion. I understand why we got here. And now I've got the courage to contribute and be in right relationship to how much I can hold in this lifetime. Yeah.
Fantastic. This is great.
I love
it. I love it too. And for many people listening into this conversation, these might be really new concepts, like elemental beings. I haven't heard of elemental beings, or even what is ancestral healing, because if somebody hasn't really thought about this before, or it's not familiar, it might be like, whoa. So can you just explain a little more about ancestral healing? Sort of like Ancestral Healing 101.
Yeah, Ancestral Healing 101. And I'm so glad you asked that, because, on the internet right now, all of our favorite place to hang out, there's a lot of talk about ancestor healing or ancestors, so I do encourage people to explore further than what I'm getting ready to share, as there's many different point of views of how to approach it. And in fact, I have prepared a little freebie for those who would like to download it, that are 8 ways into exploring ancestral healing, something that's accessible to you. And I'll say the 4 main areas that people get into ancestor healing, which is looking at what's in me that I've inherited, that I'm carrying forward from my people of my past, whether that's your mother, your grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, your great-great-great-great-great-great-great, like as far back as we passed down thoughts, beliefs, feelings, genes, ways of living, ways of believing, ways of thinking, ways of interacting. And the 4 main ways that I think are most accessible is obviously through science, like through the genes. Everyone's doing the DNA testing right now and seeing what genetics they're carrying, whether that's from a health perspective or a belonging perspective, what countries and where are the little mitochondria data coming from, and what does it say, what I have a propensity to, or whatever it might be. So there's science in the genes. There's somatically, holding different traumas and remembering in our physical body. You'll notice if you line up a couple people in your family, you might have a similar body type, and we know that we store emotions and pain and things in the muscles and the fibers of our being. So you can go into processing psychologically, which is the 3rd entry point, psychologically, where you're holding things from your ancestors, your parents, in your own body, and clear it physically through your body. So somatic is 2nd. 3rd is, again, through psychology, how you think. This happens. I get clients all the time who realize all the women in their family have a problem with using our voices. How does that get passed down? Is there a history of dominating women in their bodies and in the world, really? So what does it look like when you've worked with coaches, you've gone to speech therapy, you've done all the things, and you still see the same cycle? It's more than just what I've learned. It's more than just imposter syndrome. These are deep, deep, deep ancestral wounds that's been passed on. We've got to clear those to get into it. And then finally, you will see folks, let me see, what did I say what the final one was? Because I get so excited because I'm thinking of other things I want to share with everybody. The other things is pretty much ancestral lifestyle. What are the lands my people came from? What are the foods they drank or ate, and the clothes they wore, or the songs, or things that remind me of home. Connecting to our ancestors through the artifacts of their lives is something that usually a lot of people go through. Let me do my family tree, and finding that information does release something in your body. It helps you remember, it helps you have some pride where there might've been shame, and things like that. So those are typically the 4 areas when people are thinking about, I want to heal something that's deeper than it's just myself. And I always say that you'll know that ancestral healing is probably needed in your life because you're asking questions about where you belong, or you're noticing after working with therapists or doing all these other wonderful modalities that we need, you're still seeing these same patterns, not just in yourself, but also in your family of origin.
So what are, what's a beginning? What's a key practice to cultivate this connection?
That's a really good question. Oh, you're coming with them today. I love it. Thank you. I think the first thing always, openness to healing, change, growth, exploration always comes with a question, the inquiry. What are these reoccurring patterns that I see in my own life, in my own family, in my own community, and then in the world that I really want to heal, eradicate, understand, transform, transmute? That's a great place to start, because in that question, you start to see or connect the dots on how it came to be ever. There's some fantastic books. There's Mark Wolin of It Didn't Start With You, a really good book to get into understanding psychologically and somatically what's in your body, and what you carry, and how it's not only your own. Sometimes we're beating ourselves up trying to break through, if you will, and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't just my own. Like, how much of a relief that is, as far as carrying the work. And then you can be responsible for how you want to deal with it. Another one for those of African or African-American background is Joy DeGroy's work, Transatlantic Slave Syndrome. It's a really great book that talks about what the institution of chattel slavery across the world particularly has left an imprint of behavior and trauma and beliefs and movements in African people in the diaspora. There's a couple other books that can kind of bring in If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie is a really great book as well. So there's a few pieces of literature that's following the question. If you wanted to deepen in some reading and some literature, that'd be really great. And then my favorite, as far as getting into actual practice. So you've done some inquiry, and then you might have read some books or found some things on the internet. The next one would be to actually be open to connecting to your actual dead. And that's what I think differentiates my work and a couple others who work similar to me, is ancestral healing directly with the dead. Not just the imprints of them in your life, in your body, or the way that you think, or the way that you eat or dress or live, or even the genes. It's like the spirits. I'm a spiritualist. I can feel energies. All of us do in some way, shape, or form. And when you actually connect with the actual spirits, and you're asking them about their lives, and you're curious about what was undone or unfinished or unsaid, what's being held on to, what needs to be let go of, what needs to be reclaimed, if there's blessings and goodness in our lineages, they'll tell you. And a very simple way of starting that relationship is to create an altar. Create an altar and say, this is a portal of meeting for the people who came before me, who allowed me to be here. I'm creating this to connect with you, to honor you, for y'all to come into right relationship, so that we can do some great things in my life for the lineages in the world to come. And I'm happy to talk more about altars, because they're fun too.
Yeah, please do. This is so interesting, but just to be open to have the conversation, because this again is, you began speaking about, and the theme of what we're talking about, from the singular to the whole, to the collective. It's sort of, if really focusing on self too strongly, then we're not open to listen.
Yeah, we're not open to listen when we're just focused on, it's like over efforting. Healing and growth and connectivity is a group thing, so we're trying to heal ourselves and understand ourselves, and we're just thinking about, I am only responsible for me. And it's like, I belong to other people. I have the blood of other amazing people in and around me, right? And not only do we listen when we open up to the other spirits, including the ancestors, we can lighten the load in that, again, it's not all for me to carry. Lots of times people are maybe resistant to ancestral healing or understanding what they're carrying, because they're like, what am I going to open up? What's going to be there? Like, already one generation away, there's stories that we whisper about or we don't want to talk about. And the fear of that is what keeps us in these same cycles. Like, there's something very beautiful of just opening and saying, it's not my responsibility. And I would love to know how we can heal this, how we can elevate and lighten this load. that's where shame and guilt and grief can just dissipate or transmute into pride and ease and belonging and resilience.
Mm. Mm. And it's so interesting as you're speaking, you know, I think, well, how curious is it that we're drawn to the things that we are, the things that light us up. You know, we might be aware of things we wish to get away from, sort of in our family lineage, but sometimes, you know, the things that we're drawn to might be really left of center because it's not something that anyone in our lineage that we're aware of was drawn to, and yet it's so inherently strong in us. And we may not have, you know, considered that there's a link to our ancestry and it's part of our ancestral healing. So to be open for that guidance and that support to be able to make lighter work of life.
Totally. And it's interesting to say that. I'm glad you brought it up because you're right. A lot of times people do emphasize, and I catch myself at moments emphasizing the healing and the transformation and the things to let go of. There's so much to reclaim. There's so much permission to embody who we truly are, like the soul that we are inside of this body, inside of this family at this time on this earth. We can fully expand and embody in that when we can reclaim some of those and have permission to love those ancestral gifts that we don't even realize we already have, or we haven't fully allowed ourselves to fall into it. So that's a really great point. It's like, you know, you realize, oh, that interest in painting and weaving I've been putting away, but always comes into my mind. Didn't know 4 generations back, we did have, you know, a family business of small heirlooms of painting and whatever it might be. And that was forgotten because we moved to such and such, and it came to me in a dream and my ancestors told me. And now I just can't resist wanting to do it. Like there's things like that actually come through when you get into this work.
And altars as portals. Would you like to share a little more about that?
Yeah. You know, sometimes people ask me, besides just ancestor work, but just generally, how do I start my spiritual practice? Like, how can I tune in with myself and work with energies? And I always say, start with what the earth has given us. They are our tools to connect with the divine. You know, it's the elementals. It is water, air, fire, earth. It is being out in nature. It's speaking, you know, it's praying, it's setting an intention. And so when folks say they want to do some healing or get into their spiritual practice or create an altar, I'm always like, just start with the basics: a glass of water, a candle for fire, a feather or something that represents air, and a plant or a flower of some sort. And you might, you know, I don't normally recommend to put a photo of any type of ancestors there because ideally you want to connect with ancestors who mean the well. They're really well to connect with you. They're like, I want to help you. Here's a descendant of mine who is really reaching for remembering some ancient ways. Let me come through. They might not be just 1 or 2 generations back. They might be 17, you know? And so when you just kind of like designate this as sacred space and sit there and come and do your journaling or do your prayer or do your mantras or your breathing exercises and light your candle, that's sacred. You've got all the things that helps connect us to the unknown right there. They are portals.
They are portals. And what a wonderful practice to cultivate, to really get connected to country and to our Indigenous people on whichever land we find ourselves sitting at the moment.
A good way to honor the Indigenous lands, the folks who were there before. It is a great way. I normally, in that case, put the altar to honor them outside on their land. And then my ancestor altar is separate from that to, you know, have respect and reverence. And it's a great way if you have traveled to your ancestral lands, you know, whatever they might be, and you can bring some of that land or dirt in a little plastic baggie back and place it on your altar. It is a beautiful practice of connecting in that way. But, you know, I do have a practice I'd love to share whenever I go somewhere. The first thing I do when I get off of the plane and my feet touch the ground, even if it's on the tarmac, is just say, I am Ash Johns. I come from, and I say my lineage. Thank you for the safe travel. I'm grateful to be here. once I get somewhere where I can put a little incense into the ground, I do so. And I just thank the spirits of that land for allowing me to be there, and for my ancestors to be traveling with me, and that my ancestors and my spirits are well greeted with the ancestors and the spirits of that land. Just that almost like cultural acknowledgement and exchange that asks for permission and kind of just acknowledges who I am on the land is allows me to have some beautiful dreams, usually my first night somewhere. So
that is so beautiful. And again, it illustrates, the self-indulgence of, oh, I'm here. How long is it going to take me to get through immigration? Do I have to go to the bathroom before I line up to go to immigration? And how am I going to get an Uber? And where am I going to stay? And
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and there's often no awareness whatsoever or ceremony, conscious ceremony and intention put into, acknowledging the spirits of the land.
The interesting thing is, yeah, that's true. And it's not like I have to pull out all my bells and whistles and like light the candle and sit on the ground and cross leg and all the things of being in ceremony in the most ritualistic space. It's literally just the acknowledgement. Like the spirits really appreciate just that. It's like walking down the street when we do smile or like nod our head at someone, and that one human exchange makes a difference. Same thing with the spirits.
Yeah.
Again, being in relationship with the collective.
Yes.
Spirit.
Yeah. So you work with entrepreneurs. So how do you bring all of this in, and where does it all sit in entrepreneurship?
Gosh, thanks for that. Oh my goodness. I'm really enjoying this. It's great. Thank you so much. So my background is actually in advertising, ad agencies in New York City and Chicago, and then market research and brand strategy. And I got out of the industries because I just felt like those skills were not helping me create or heal or do anything really impactful or purpose-driven in the world. And so I was like, I'd rather take these skills and apply them to something that actually helps people be well in the world, And so over time, fast forward, I ended up being in Bali running a women's retreat. And when I was there, I would have all these amazing women from all over the world coming to take a break from their day jobs or take a break or mark, I would say like a milestone in their lives, if you will. And all of them were like, shout out to all these women, because some of them might see me and like, hi. I was like, wait a minute. There's a theme here around stepping into your life's work and doing business differently, leveraging the skills that we do have, but applying in a way that really feels good and is aligned with our purpose. And once I got into coaching or spiritually supporting entrepreneurs, I started seeing the underlayers of like the healing and like the self-sabotage and like all of these things. And I was like, okay, so we need to do life coaching with business strategy and coaching. And then I was like, wait, we're still seeing some more patterns in here, even though you've worked with other people, you've worked with me, and that's what led to the ancestors. And so what I believe is, again, with this deepest and greatest reoccurring pattern around surviving, because surviving brings up scarcity, it brings up doubt, it brings up lack, it brings up othering, tribalism, me versus you, or like I'll throw you under the bus or anything to make the sell and all of these things, And I was like, what would it be like if we had so many conscious, trusting, abundant, earth honoring, spiritually rooted entrepreneurs creating a whole new marketplace and enterprise in the world? Who are well, who are living, not perfect, but like living this thing of spiritual evolution and connectivity while creating abundance and trading monies across the world. What would that look like? What would the energy of our money, how much further would it expand? And just that thought of loving creativity, being rooted in spirit and enjoying abundance, right? Is where my work really became folded together. So it lights me up to help someone step into their calling and really have the permission from themselves and their ancestors, their higher self and their people on this vision that they're here to birth.
Yeah. This is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so holistic. And it's sort of like a real hologram, holistic, because of all the dimensions it's bringing in. And what's most alive in you now? What's most alive in you in 2020? I mean, what a year.
Oh, what is most alive? That's a great question. Huh. Well, I will say I'm currently working on offering a mastermind, if you will, a mentorship mastermind that is 6 months, and it's called Finding Your Freedom. And finding your freedom is 6 paths to freedom, is what I call them, that allows you to, again, do that expanding and that contracting from culture to yourself and building your own spiritual practice and looking at the relationships you need and working with your ancestors to, again, birth what you want. And so that's really inspiring me, because a lot of my work has been one-on-one, and it's been personal with myself and then one-on-one. And now I'm opening it up to do a community experience. So that is feeling really great. I'm also leaning into having some downtime to really write my philosophies. Like, there's some articles that are in me. There are some, just some videos I want to do, and just other things to be able to share that people can enjoy when I can't reach them or when I'm not around. There's something about stepping into your work in a way that it's living and breathing even when you're resting, that I'm
Yes.
I truly feel, I bet you do know what this feels like. I feel like I'm
Absolutely. And I
participating.
love that you've raised, I've loved that you've spoken to this.
Yeah.
Because that's the spaciousness. That's the spaciousness that's
Mm.
so necessary for what's to come through us to be received. Yeah. And then just to allow it to start flowing into action. Otherwise it can get really not forced, but it loses its fluidity a little and its juiciness.
You're hitting it. Totally. That's how I was. There was a moment where I looked up, like COVID came in, right? And I was like, something is a little off. There's something happening inside of me. I realized the blinders were on, and I've just been focusing one-on-one work and in myself. And I was like, oh, it's time to actually lean back and allow spirit to work through me and just get these words flowing. And I was feeling the blockage in the throat chakra and in my womb area of creativity, and was like, okay, there's a shift happening. Let me surrender to it and allow me to further deepen in this work. And it's scary and it's exciting.
Yeah. And I love that you felt into the parts of your body instead of what am I feeling? Where am I feeling this? Where is this sitting?
Yeah.
So
My head
again,
was
just
my head was tired too. I was like going and going and going. And I was like, and I love that you asked me this question, because sometimes I think when people see us on these kinds of conferences or see us on the internet, everyone's putting everyone on these pedestals and they're like, you must have figured it all out. And I'm like, I'm living it as much as I am offering it or holding it. And I really like the vulnerable moments to share what that's like. Yeah.
Oh, because it's so true. It's a level playing field at the end of the day. we're all finding our way. We're all swimming in the soup.
I'm so glad you don't see the smeared mascara here.
Hey, I got up this morning and lit the fire to be with you, and when I turned on the camera, I because I was tired, I'd rubbed ghee on my forehead, and when I lit the fire, I'd smeared ash. Oh my God. I was sitting there with black ash all across my forehead.
There you go. There you go. I like it.
So, I could have kept it on, and that would have made me perhaps more relatable to many, but not brush my hair. But yeah, we're all in it together. And so it is so wonderful to share our vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that we get caught in our heads sometimes, or that we're not digesting it so well, or we get blocked.
Yeah, completely. And to have some compassion, I was in a group of other coaches and healers yesterday, and we were having a conversation on the uprising and the sensitivity and the consciousness right now. Like 2020 is really transforming the world, right? And how kind of beat up we all are in some ways.
Yeah.
And I was like, even in wanting to see change and social reform and connectivity connectivity and unity consciousness and justice and all of these things, we still have to take care of ourselves. We really do. And sometimes when we're taking care of ourselves, people will try to, poke a little stick at you and say, you don't
Yes.
deserve that. And it's like, well, if we're all sick, who's going to tend, who heals the healer? So yeah, just a little reminder to all of us, myself included, to tend to ourselves, our physical body, our spirits, our minds, so that we can even hold what we're witnessing in the world and what we're feeling in our bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that, because it's so true. And sometimes it's a really gutsy, courageous thing to do, to say, oh, well, hang on, put the brake on. You can wait. This can wait. That can wait. I really have to say yes to me right now. Or the ice is getting a little thin underfoot.
Yeah. We're like, oh, the fire is starting to burn me. Everything is getting consumed by, again, a call for balance.
Yeah.
When we balance, we go a lot further.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ash, thank you so much for being in conversation today. I mean, I just love it to keep going and going and going. We'll have to create a part 2.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I would love to. Normally, before any talks, I address the lands and the spirits that be, and we got right into it. So I'd love to have a moment to do that, if that's all right. And those who are listening, feel free to join in whatever way feels comfortable for you.
Yes,
Peace.
yes, please do.
Yeah. Thank you. Gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity to share the passions, the gifts, the teachings, the healing, the wholeness, the desire, the visions, the dreams, and most importantly, the love with the lands, through my voice, through the spirit and the energy of air. Thank you to the lands in which this message gets to go through, the hearts in which it gets to reach. I ask that any and all things that are not nourishing, may they transmute and dissipate and through the airwaves. And all the things that are wonderful and held and helpful really sink into fertile grounds and sprout out new beginnings of connectivity and hope and resilience and just goodness. Thank you to all of the ancestors. Thank you to all of the spirit guides. Thank you to all of the participants, and blessings to my most gracious host and those who brought us into community. That is my ask. And so it is. Thank you.
And so it is. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.